Although the Camino goes mainly through arid lands, it crosses many different vegetation types. It goes from the highlands in central Mexico, in pine forests and oak forests, into woodlands, and then right into the desert.
Look really beautiful.
Yeah, you know they do. There's nothing prettier in the world than strings of freshly dried chilies. God, they also taste great. Let's go see what they got.
Let's go.
Yeah. Well, they're not only pretty, but they were a basic food here along El Camino Real, and all the native peoples grew them in great quantities. Oh man, what a variety. Look at, these aren't quite dry.
The smell,
The smell is great, yeah.
beautiful smell. They are high quality chilies.
They are very, very, very nice, yeah. It's good reason that Hatch is known as the Chile capital of the world.
The chilies that have made Hatch very famous are the same chilies that the Spaniards found along the Rio Grande. There was intensive cultivation of corn, squash, beans, and chilies. These were the basic products that maintained the Indian populations here.
As the threat of Apache attacks subsided, numerous small towns were established at former campsites along the Rio Grande, but only one developed into a major city, Albuquerque.
Albuquerque is 100 years younger than Santa Fe. And I think that's just a reflection of how many hostile indigenous peoples the Spaniards had to deal with and didn't feel safe setting up a city here.
Albuquerque was named after a Spanish nobleman that was an important administrator back in Spain. He never came to this town.
Nice to have a mural that gives you some idea of what travel along El Camino Real looked like. Although this was actually coming south from Bernalillo to the founding of Albuquerque. It's sort of accurate.
Albuquerque was the last big stop in the Camino Real. It was a place where you can go across the river. There was a very good ford where you can haul the carts and the wagons. It was much lower than Santa Fe.
Well, Santa Fe is still the capital of New Mexico, but by the end of the 19th century, Albuquerque had way surpassed it in terms of size and importance.
And that was only natural, because Albuquerque enjoys a much warmer climate, has fine agricultural fields irrigated by the Rio Grande, and above all, it allowed the flow of trade towards the west. At a time in which the United States was having a great expansion, so Santa Fe remained forgotten up there. With the establishment of the new border line at El Paso, the Camino Real trade started to decline. It was not a dramatic decline, but the links between the East and the West within the United States gained force, and most of the trade started to flow from east to west. That opened the way to the conquest of the West.
The end of El Camino Real lies uphill and inland. What the Spanish called the City of Holy Faith, Santa Fe, was established near Indian villages the Spaniards called pueblos.
The Pueblo Revolt of 1680 was probably the most significant historical event in the history of New Mexico, because all of the Pueblos united. They were bickering among themselves. They united at a conspiracy, threw out the Spaniards. Almost everyone who spoke Spanish was either killed or kicked out of New Mexico for 12 years. After that, the Spaniards reestablished control, but it was never the same, and that event established a precedent for the future in Spanish relations with New Mexico. Amazing time.
Santa Fe marked the end of the Camino Real. It was a natural place to establish the capital of the northern territories. It was already a sprawling urban center because of the many pueblos that were around. Probably was the most complex society in hundreds of miles around. After 6 months of hard travel through deserts and swamps and big sand dunes, they finally arrived to Santa Fe. They stayed here for about 6 months more, gathering trade from all around the place, and assembled again a caravan carrying the precious goods of this region back to Mexico City, and some of them even back to Europe. Juan de Oñate stipulated in the contract he made with the Crown that anyone that stayed for more than 5 years in the newly founded colony will become a don, a title of nobility that was very important to many and that allowed people to have properties. Juan de Oñate stayed as governor of the province for 12 years. Santa Fe today is a very different place from what Juan de Oñate saw. It is a place where people living here want really to look and convey the image of residents, and they wear very lavish clothes in a sort of antique way, trying to mimic the old ways that were used in the region. And the rest of the people are tourists, who want to trade some silver and take back to their houses to the east, to the north, to the west. Not to the south, I would say.
By the beginning of the 20th century, the importance of El Camino Real de Tierra Adentro as a trade route had largely vanished. Easterners gradually overwhelmed Santa Fe, attracted here by the benign climate, the natural beauty, and its diversity of people. Hispanic roots are still evident here, and in the nearby pueblos, native peoples struggle to reconcile ancient traditions with modern demands.
Hacer lo que habían planeado. Disfrazados de mineros, ¿quién lo había de maliciar?
Funding for The Desert Speaks was provided by Desert Program Partners, by the Desert Southwest Cooperative Ecosystem Studies Units, and the International Conservation Programs Office, Intermountain Region. Copies of The Desert Speaks are available from KUAT. To order, call 1-800-841-5923, and please be sure to mention the episode number. For more information about The Desert Speaks, visit KUAT online at this address.